there was an interview that I watched and read with this CEO from a company called Klarna. It's out in Sweden, I think. Very much sounds like a Swedish Klarna. It's very Swedish. But it was a CEO who said that, hey, for the last year, I'm not replacing my human employees. I'm just using AI to fill in all the gaps. And I read the article, and I'll talk about this because I think there's more to it than this, but it's interesting because similarly in San Francisco, there is this whole ad campaign that is taking some major heat right now. I mean, major heat for this. And I think I've got it here. Let me pull up the thing. The company is called, it's a startup company. Oh, Artisan. And if you're out in San Francisco, you may have seen these things. The company's called Artisan, and they're putting up a bunch of ads out there that's like, the era of AI employees is here. Stop hiring humans, use agents. And then it has a bunch of these like, AI doesn't need work-life balance. So it's this very in your face middle finger to humans and saying you don't need them. And so and this is a growing trend. I'm just saying this is a growing trend that I don't think should be. Well, there's nuance to my response to this. So some people, you might not like my response to this, but even Sam Altman, I saw an interview with him recently where he's like, we need to be hiring more AI. Like this is the future. And the CFO is going down this path of like, hey, AI is capable of PhD level intelligence. And so we are, not backfilling positions. We're filling positions with agents and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I mean, I guess I understand OpenAI doing some of that. They're a freaking AI company. If they're not doing it, they're not drinking their own Kool-Aid. But this trend goes back to my previous point of we are just making some really, really foolish decisions with this. And again, it's a misunderstanding. I just think it's a misunderstanding of what are we actually trying to do? What do we actually need people to do? And honestly, also just a gross misunderstanding of the tech and its capabilities and its limitations. And so I fully anticipate as we come into 2025, this is going to be the push. A gentle AI is a big thing. So I'm going to pause there and focus on why I don't think it's all bad. Okay. So this might be the more controversial part of it. I don't know. It depends on who you are. I guess if you're a big, get rid of the humans and hire AI, then go for it. There are absolutely certain things, and having worked in many companies and worked with many companies over the years, where I go, why do we have a person doing this job? I think of the movie Office Space, where the crazy guy with the stapler, where it's like, what would you say you do here? And this is true in a lot of companies where there is literally just waste all over the place. And I know if you're an employee or if you're displaced or whatever, that can be really scary to hear. Companies might do some hard work to figure out, do we really need people doing this work? And maybe we don't. And there are legitimate areas where you have people doing things that you really don't need people doing. And, that's where when I read the CEO interview with Klarna, I actually didn't agree. I actually agreed with much of his perspective. Here's a perfect example. I'm setting up my own practice. I'm doing some of these things. My first move is not to hire a bunch of employees. My first move is to maximize AI to help me accomplish things that I only have limited capacity to do. And then as I'm identifying things where I go, I really need a human to do this, or I really would value and the lift will be most beneficial from a human, that's where I'm going to either, augment it with contractors at some point, get employees, all this, but I'm going to be very thoughtful about it. And I will say the Klarna CEO, I think that's more the approach he's taking. Some of it was a little bit, I get it. It's a clickbaity headline. I'm not hiring employees anymore. And it's when you actually get into the interview, it's like, that's not really what he's saying. He's saying he's being much more thoughtful, intentional, maybe a little further than I would go with it. But this can be a really good thing. And it can, to the employees who hear this and freak out, this actually can provide a more stable work environment. Because part of the reason, not all, but part of the reason we see layoffs left and right is companies go through these cycles where they just throw people at problems without a whole lot of thought. And people are very expensive and they're a lot of work. And then all of a sudden companies go, we didn't quite get the lift we thought. And we just hired you know what? I guess maybe we need to get rid of some of those people. And it results in layoffs. Now, granted, could this be avoided? Absolutely. Absolutely. But wouldn't you rather have companies maybe throwing things at AI and having to cut back on AI rather than somebody I talked to who just got a job, started, and 2 weeks later got laid off? I mean, that's a pretty terrible experience and it destroys the person. So do I see opportunity for this to be a positive? I do. I actually do. I don't appreciate this whole forget humans, let's just move on from them as though there's somehow a subcategory of employees. And that mindset, that mentality is just destructive. But the other thing about it, and this is where when I was looking at some of the artisan ads, I'm like, this isn't even accurate. It paints this picture of like, oh, employees need work-life balance and they need this and that. AI doesn't. And I just went, you don't know AI if you think that. Now, granted, might it need work-life balance in the way that people do? Well, no. But do people have to check in on what it's doing so it doesn't destroy things? If you watched my one last week, AI is nefarious. Who's checking that? I did it months ago. Robots were self-terminating. I mean, this idea that AI is somehow the perfect version of everything we want in humans with none of the bad, that's what I didn't like about the artisan ads. I get they're trying to be clickbaity. And the worst part is the CEO's like, well, it's working. Our sales are up. And I'm like, well, of course it is. Duh. But you're going to be on the hook when companies go, hey, we don't need humans. And that's where some of these tech firms aren't thinking this through, because when companies hire a bunch of people and then it doesn't work and they lay them off, they, use political, corporate jargon and the innovation and strategy, or they gaslight the employees and go, well, it's really kind of your fault. You weren't performing. What these tech companies don't do is making these promises that, hey, just get rid of your people and use our agents. Like, who do you think these companies are going to blame when it goes south? Which it will. I've worked with vendors long enough to know that when things go wrong with vendors, companies don't go, you know what? This was really on us. We didn't think this through. And vendor, I know you did your best and you really tried to warn us about this and we didn't listen and we said, shut up and just do what we want. And now that's not going so well for us. And we need to take full responsibility. That's not how it happens. I'm telling you right now, that's not how it happens. You will be the first one to get thrown under the bus when things go sideways. And so that's where, to the CEO of Artisan who's like, haha, look at our sales go up and all this stuff. Yeah, you might experience some exponential growth that implodes in on itself. And you might go, maybe we shouldn't have made promises that we couldn't possibly deliver on. Maybe we should have thought this through a little bit. Goes back to my very first one. Good grief, companies. It doesn't have to be this difficult. You don't need to make these messes for yourselves. And yet we keep doing it over and over and over and over. So we'll see what happens, but I fully anticipate in 2025, we're going to hear a lot more about agental AI and lots more promises about, don't hire humans, hire people. And are there specific times where, yes, after a thoughtful analysis and understanding and critical way, you do it, you may decide that. But I think what you'll find is you will likely be hiring just as many humans, but for different things or repurposing them in different ways. And the reality is, I don't know a single company that goes, we have all the talent we need. So as an encouragement to the employees, I get it's hard right now. I mean, I was displaced this year, so I get it. And I talked to a lot of people who are feeling hopeless because they're just like, oh, I can't even get a call back on stuff. So I get it. But that's not the way it's going to go. And there's not enough people to fill the jobs that we have. So hang in there. Now, to the employees,